gonna put you on the spot. Okay, dream talking guys, we got a special treat for you. We're gonna have a little quick episode because we're hungry. But as always, let me start with this. This is Elizabeth Carruthers, my great friend. Don't get nervous. I never do this. I'm turning into like a radio show. But
check 1 2.
Yeah, I should sound check it, but I'm not going to. I'm being lazy. So I would say you are probably the number one person I can point to for the reason I'm doing this podcast. For real. Because do you remember? So here's another thing I just thought of. You gotta say something.
What my dad would say is, no good deed ever goes unpunished.
Yeah, well, there you go. Here's your punishment.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
I have a very good feeling that it's the 1 year anniversary of us meeting today.
Today? Oh my gosh, Redwood City.
Redwood City. So I went to Redwood City the week after Valentine's.
Okay.
Was my first week there.
Okay.
And you and he who shall not be named showed up about that same week.
With the candy.
Yeah. I feel like it's
right.
If it's not the anniversary, it's like within the week of the anniversary of us meeting.
Well, let's do what we do as a culture. Let's decide something.
Yeah.
It is the truth, and then let's go back and bust our balls to figure out how we can document that actually happened.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah, we'll do like every religion and every other holiday.
It was definitely that, and somehow we'll.
Or we could just not bust our balls and just say, yeah, it's the 21st of February.
Well, that's cool. Happy anniversary.
Right, happy anniversary.
It's been a fabulous year.
Okay, so I'll start off with you walk in to the building, and like most people that I run into at work, it's just, okay, here's another, whoever, and I introduce myself to you, you introduce yourself, and the thing that I remember triggering was that you said you were a writer and that you wanted to retire within a couple of years so that you can write and you're into historical nonfiction. And then I was like, oh, okay, maybe we do have a weirdo that we can connect with a little bit. And man, boy, was I wrong, because we connected a lot. And it was one of those, God, I gotta find a better way of saying it, but it's a feeling of like past life, kinship feeling of like you were my mom in a past life, or you were my sister in a past life, or it's just there's so much familiarity at such an early stage. And then I was thinking on the drive over too of how like hanging out with you, I feel like I'm my best self. And that's really fucking cool to have a friend like that.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I feel the same way in so many ways, and I also think, and walking into that little control room, rocking the orange, I kind of feel like what also could be happening is that we were both really willing to just be vulnerable that moment.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, so I don't have to put on this front of all these images to make myself non-threatening or familiar enough for this other person to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the storyteller in you, because as soon as you said that, it just triggered here that like I wasn't in a familiar place. I've worked most of my career in a place around people I know, right? And so if a quote outsider comes in, I'm maybe not going to be as vulnerable because I already got my set people, I got my set, I know where I'm safe. But I was a stranger in a strange land, and you were kind of a stranger in a strange land. And then it was like there was a willingness to be vulnerable, like, okay, she's a writer, screw it, I'm gonna go for it. And I just started talking about, you said historical fiction, and I said, well, I don't really read fiction, but I love nonfiction. I brought up Malcolm Gladwell, and
it was off.
And it took off from there. The rocket was off.
Yeah, Stranger in a Strange Land.
Yeah.
Like a novel, Ursula Le Guin.
Yeah, I love okay, I'm just going to shower you with a bunch of compliments and then we'll get past this.
Okay.
I love your mind that you think like a novelist about real life stuff all the time. Like you don't just tell the story in the like, this happened and this happened and that happened. It's like the context, just your little story about the mob guy living right around the corner here, and the police
chief of police.
It's all like a story. It's all this Joseph Campbell-y archetype, like what, yeah, this is what happened, but here's the cool underlining, and you just shower me with that stuff, and I totally love it.
And it's weird because, and it isn't everybody.
Pause. And we're back.
And we're back. Well, isn't it just weird how, like, I like to frame everything in a story, and that's kind of what human beings do, right?
Mm-hmm. We can't help it.
Yeah, and like I was just saying, I feel like a vegetarian shark.
Yes.
Because I'm a novelist who hates conflict.
I love that.
And if there ain't no conflict, there's really no reason for anybody to be interested.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hardest thing for me, I think, to get that, and the paradox of everybody's watching and nobody cares.
Yeah. Okay. That's so cool. So when you said that, that's what triggered me to say, okay, I'm going to start recording. When you said you feel like a vegetarian shark and that you're a novelist, I got to repeat it because it's so good. A novelist that hates conflict.
Yeah, I hate conflict.
Yes.
In my personal life, great example, if I roll up to a four-way stop, I will ensure that the other motorist, I'll like
all of them.
Yeah, I'll brake. Yeah, just go ahead and get there first because y'all work it out. I'm not looking for conflict.
No.
That tension of you go,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to offend anybody. I just don't want whatever.
Yeah.
But if we're writing stories, the whole story centers around conflict, internal conflict, conflict with, the aliens or the monster or, the sharks versus the jets, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So like for me at this park, I've been coming to this park, Willow Street Park, since I was 3, and it is the scene, it is the center of where my protagonist's best friend and brother will be killed. And I was thinking, it makes sense to me personally because all the little deaths I've experienced have kind of been linked to the park in the sense being a little kid and then being a what do they call them now, tweens or whatever.
Yeah, tween.
Yeah, pre-adolescent. And this is where I played Little League Baseball. This is where I cut school with my buddy Alex and got a dozen donuts and burned one.
Yeah.
This is where I come where I kind of need to get right.
And so that's the best place for the climax. This very dramatic and conflict climax.
And in my little personal world, it's the portal between the mobster, the retired mobster who lived supposedly, allegedly,
across the street.
Lived across the street from the bocce ball court, and then Joseph McNamara, who was an iconic police chief here in San Jose, who brought the concept of community policing. And I know personally when I was pulled over by one of the San Jose's finest 100 years ago, and he was pissed that I was gay.
Oh, jeez.
And that I didn't have anything really legitimate for him to write me up for or whatever.
Yeah, being gay wasn't illegal.
No, but
unfortunately
when
for him.
I mentioned, hey, my dad, I pulled out my white middle-class privilege because I thought I knew this man was going to either kill me or beat me.
Jesus.
And I just said, hey, my dad lives down the street from Joe. And he goes, well, you can tell Joe I'm out here doing the Lord's work.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So that energy, that,
you've had so many of those. You've told so many of those stories. We won't get to all of them today. Of like these intense shit that grown-ass men said to you when you were young.
And I'm like, what? I don't get it.
Yeah, that'll build some survival instincts for sure.
Yeah. But just that energy is. I was thinking about this the other day. Thinking about my Irish grandmother. I'm just kidding. And how I think police, their function or whatever, is to maintain the old way.
Yeah.
Right? So they're not on the edge of the new way.
Yeah, it's kind of like the very definition of conservative,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Like, shit is their whole thing is to maintain order. Their whole thing is to shit's worked enough now that we don't have complete chaos. So we're going to keep shit the way it is.
I don't even know if it's that. I think we have I can't speak for a police person in policing, but we have a lot of shit. We have complete chaos. This is where we're at today. I don't necessarily even personally agree with it necessarily, but I got to enforce it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, and that overarching honor or that overarching commitment,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
to enforcing
Yeah.
the rules. The slippery slope is when people decide they're the judge and
Exactly.
they're all three branches of the government.
Mm-hmm. Judge, jury, and executioner.
Yes,
Yep.
and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the function, I think.
Yeah, no, I get it. So, as always, we tend towards certain themes at the same time, even though we don't see each other that often in person, right? So, this has been a theme for me over the last couple of weeks.
That's interesting.
Is the conservative archetype and the more liberal progressive archetype, and how thinking of conservatives in that way of like order and societal order is a very valuable and sensitive thing, and
sensitive,
yes, and it could crumble. And I think that a lot of people that will say temperamentally lean towards more conservative will say that like they don't have that revolutionary tear it all down. They're like, we're freaking lucky to have the reasonable amount of order and structure that we have in society. It's valuable. Don't fuck with it. And liberals, and again, I think it's temperamental. I think a lot of it is how you're born. Because I and environmental's huge too, you know, for sure. But I was born in about as crazy a liberal environment as you can be born, Berkeley, California.
And you're about as crazy as a person can be.
And I am on a whole lot of levels. But as a 30-year-old man with a middle-class job with 5 kids, and I didn't tell you my house got broken into last week. And I'm putting cameras up, and I'm getting a dog.
Yeah.
And I already have a gun. Like, those are all not, Berkeley would like say, what the fuck's wrong with you? You know what I mean? And it's, I think temperamentally, actually, I'm not as far left, like temperamentally as far as how I was born genetically, yada yada yada. I'm not as far left as the environment I grew up in, and that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's something I've been toying with, is the archetypical conservative, the archetypical liberal. Now, one big personality type. This is from. Have you heard of the Big 5 personality types? It's Jordan Peterson is the guy that I've been hearing a lot about it from.
What are some of the types?
So, oh man, I'm not gonna freaking remember them. The big one that I was thinking of when I was thinking of conservatives and liberals is openness to new experiences. So liberals are very open to new experiences.
Well, the brand of liberals, because you know, I was raised in a very liberal environment too, and I'm not as liberal. I'm coming to realize, or I'm not as liberal as the perception that was the kind
because
the brand is open, but
the brand, I love
but that whole
yeah,
thing about like being tolerant. So one of the biggest lessons I ever was able to learn, is it was a painful lesson, but it really helped me, was I was in a relationship with a woman way older than me, and I was having struggles with my family and about them not accepting me. And I had to learn that, well, if I want tolerance from others, I really have to give it myself, and not just slap a bumper sticker on be tolerant and have all the iconic brands of all the world religion.
Yeah, the rubber meets the road when can you really have tolerance? Can you give love? Can you give acceptance to the people that it's hard for you to do that for?
Yeah, or the people
people that don't give it to you.
But again, here we are at the 4-way stop, assuming that someone's going to have a beef with us, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're always hands in the air.
Go ahead with your order.
Yeah, that's it. Right on. Okay, cool. So I see the algorithm of my brain going a million places, so I got to pick one. So one thing I was thinking of was the way that we tend to go on similar themes, and then when we go to talk to each other, the masterclass thing was the perfect example of that, which I told that already on 2 episodes ago, the one I did as a group, the excuse that I did with Keith and a couple of the regulars from Paul's meetings. So I already told a very abbreviated version of the story, that we just tend to, like, whatever the ether is, we just tend to tap into similar areas. And I was thinking too, the phenomenon that I think I've had more conversations with you in my imagination over the last year than any other person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cool that like you come across someone that represents that certain archetype that's agrees with you so much but is different enough that you want to visit that archetype in your imagination and, you know,
kind of lay it out there and see what that other person who's really a part of yourself thinks about it.
Yeah, and it's obviously...
I would do the chunky, not the creamy peanut butter,
right.
But definitely peanut butter.
It's obviously all projection.
Yeah.
It's like the very definition of projection.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to like know that person, right? And then, you know, we've sent texts to each other like, hey, stop interrupting me in my imagination.
Shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
In my mind, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's, okay, that was one thing I was thinking of. I was also thinking of the fact that how cool it is to be a creative type person, and that there's a lot of people that will say maybe don't lean towards the creative side, that just come to the park and just, it's a park. Yeah, I used to come here when I was little. And it's so cool that you, like you're saying, you tie it to your story in all these different ways, and that it brings this park to life in so many cool ways. Like, instead of just, oh yeah, it used to be nicer, you know, there wasn't as much trash on the ground, or just that, you know,
back in the good old days, we had recreation leaders who would hand us a damn volleyball, Nick.
Which they did, right?
Which they did,
yeah. But
we don't want to pay for that anymore. See how I just slammed everybody?
I love it.
You love it.
Yeah. So having a creative type mind, and since Masterclass, I can't turn it off. I watch freaking David Lynch talk about making movies, which is crazy. We got to talk about that. Listen to Malcolm Gladwell talk about, writing. And everywhere I go, when someone starts telling me the story of their life, I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be a good movie. And not just that would be a good movie, but I can see the scenes, and I can see the characters, and you know, and it's fucking cool. You feel like a kid again. You know what I mean? And that was something that was so alive for me when I was young, and really did get turned off until like literally this last year. Like I told you a year ago, I don't like fiction.
Yeah.
Like I don't read fiction. I don't like watching shows. I don't like watching movies.
I don't do that.
I don't do that. Why did I draw that line? Like I was like, no, I like documentaries and nonfiction. Give me some real life shit, right? And over the last year, I've so gotten back into movies and into shows, and even been, I don't read, but listen audiobook to some novels that it's like, you know, the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and I'm like, you see, and you've texted me this before, which is a super interesting thing we can get into, is that in fiction you can reach truths that you can't in nonfiction.
Well,
it's like more
one
real.
of my amazing teachers I had back in the day, Dorothy Allison said, in fiction we lie in order to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I think she says it best.
Yeah. That's it.
And what I'm hearing, which the part's like, wow, I never thought of this before, was maybe that's one of the reasons why even in our sophisticated, super, attention grabbing, commodification world, whatever.
2-minute YouTube clip.
That the need to feel like a kid again, to have that excitement about a story, and it really doesn't matter the format. I mean, I love books. I love the way books smell. I love
tactile,
I love that.
Feeling,
but I also I'm so grateful to have a whole bunch of books I just read on my computer. But just having that excitement about story.
Yeah, and it brings like you're saying, and then having that that compulsion to write. And that's what
it is a compulsion.
Yeah, exactly. And that was something I don't remember his freaking name. He's like a 1950s kind of badass writer guy. Bukowski, yes. Yeah. You see? I love it. You remember it. So Bukowski said, don't write unless it's painful not to. And that's it. Like, and that's kind of like there's a creative impulse in me, and there always has been, and that's kind of the only reason I'm doing the podcast. Like, I wouldn't do it unless I had to. And like there's been this just aching thing in me of like, go start doing the fucking podcast, start sitting down with people, start recording stuff, because I get like high off of this shit. Like this little 30-minute thing we're gonna do, it's gonna like keep me running for a week.
It's your jam.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just fires me up. It gets me into like a flow state. I get to connect with people, and the other cool thing is it gives me an excuse to like meet up with people when I maybe.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all just good on top of good.
Yeah.
Win.
Yeah.
You know.
Right on.
And so I want to thank you for opening me up to that world.
Well, wow. I want to thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
I mean, because it was a really amazing experience for me to show up in that control room at Redwood City. And you know, my thing was, okay, I'm going to the ends of this earth for this project. I felt nervous. I felt anxiety.
Me too. Yeah.
Kind of like you were saying. And I thought, but I know in my heart of hearts, something really positive is going to come out of it, even if it's just, okay, I did it.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to meet you, and just hard to put into words.
It
the
is.
connection, and then just weird little stuff that our brains get all lit up over, like we have the same birthday.
We have the exact same
That's
birthday.
weird.
September 18th.
What do you have, 1 out of 365 chances of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know when you're talking about like that, it's sort of vulnerable to like take that leap.
To show up as yourself.
To show up as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's been, so I've reread or re-listened to Alan Watts has a book called The Wisdom of Insecurity, which is fucking great. And it was written in the 1950s. And, yeah, I know. I was like,
before they had a self-help section at the Barnes & Noble.
You got it.
Oh my.
You got it. So the wisdom of insecurity, and that's been another theme that's been dancing around in my head, is the needing to have control of shit is what creates that existential crisis, that real insecurity, that heavy like panic and anxiety and all that.
Yes.
And in his book, The Wisdom of Insecurity, I'll super simplify it. The best security is to realize you're infinitely vulnerable. You're infinitely insecure. That which wants control has no control, right? And
you're trying to cover up the turkey skin on your left elbow.
That's it, yeah.
Elbow. Exactly. Whereas the reality is your whole ass is
showing.
Exposed.
You got it. Yeah.
Just
just let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what came up for me when you were saying that is, I'm not a parent anymore. I helped raise a set of twins, you know.
Yeah.
But you're in the trenches of parenting.
Mm-hmm.
So we tell these kids, well, you know, be yourself and show up.
What a confusing.
Go. You know what, dude? Go to that high school right there and just fucking just be yourself. It'll all be good.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
I know. What a confusing direction to give them.
What a setup, man.
I know.
That's fucked up. Meanwhile, I'm at the four-way stop, not wanting to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
You know, but let me drive you to the high school where you're just.
Oh, you're like gonna make me emotional because this is.
And you know, you'll get your first period and all that, you know, or boys, you know.
Yeah, this is one of the most paradoxical, weird lessons, themes that I don't quite know how to get across to my kids. I kind of got a strategy, I don't know if it works, of like, I tell them, I love you unconditionally. I think you're like so cool in all these many ways. You're such an interesting person.
Yeah.
I love.
I see your beauty.
I see the beauty.
And
I love spending time with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that to every single one of my kids.
Can't wait to hear what you think about this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You know.
You're so deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I give them all of that, and then I also say, you're gonna bring all that amazingness to the world, and there'll be a lot of people that are gonna shit on it. And there'll be a lot of people that'll make you feel bad for being vulnerable and for opening up. Don't fucking listen to them. Like they're, and then I always say, like, Martin Luther King had haters, Gandhi had haters. Go down, and then I'll pick like who their favorite people are. Like I can't, Angelo. Steph Curry has so many haters. Warrior fans hate on Steph Curry, and he's the most amazing shooter in the history of basketball. You know what I mean?
And a good dude.
Yeah. So I don't know how to portray that, and I know life is going to teach them. It's gonna either
Yeah,
way, right?
life is the.
It's gonna beat them
'Cause
into
words don't
submission.
teach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's gonna. But I feel like the only job, my only role, is to communicate, I love you unconditionally. You know, and not only I love you unconditionally, I think you're really cool, the way you are.
Just the way you are.
And the way you are will change. I don't need you to stay 6-year-old,
Yeah.
version.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're okay.
Yeah.
You're 16. You're a whole, but
Yeah.
I I love and appreciate you, and I love spending time with you here today. You know what I mean? And so that's my best attempt. We're all faking it. I
remember my mom telling me I was pretty. I'm like, you have to say that. You're just full of shit. You have to say that because you're my mom.
Oh shit. Cause I tell
That was last week, by the way.
You had to.
You're a liar.
Yeah, it gets harder the older they get. Yeah, for sure. Right on. Okay, that was a nice little mini episode. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I'm glad we finally got to this. This is, I don't know, 10 episodes in. You should have been my first episode. We've had.
I was too busy hanging out at 4-way stop.
Yeah.
Let everybody else go. Yeah, no, go
Not
right
gonna make
ahead.
it.
Go ahead, love.
Not gonna make it today. But we've had many great off mic podcasts.
And some even happened.
And some even happened.
That sounds very Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I love it. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. We'll do it again sometime. We'll do a longer one.